So there's probably no precedent and you don't have the information on what, and we don't know what you want. So it would help.
You are from the historical.
Can I
Society,
speak
right?
now?
Yes, ma'am.
So Kathy Cavalier.
1 second, is it recording?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Let's go
Kathy.
ahead. Kathy Cavalier, 313 Oak Hill Lane. I serve on the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm also the president of Newtown Square Historical Society. I'm the applicant for both of these, but in conjunction with the owner and with Friends Meeting, and Doug Humes is here representing Friends Meeting. Basically, I would want to know what you need to know. The system or the process is that we notify all these homeowners when we make an application. And then we have them come before a similar hearing. We hear if they object or they maybe don't show up, which means they don't object, they don't care. Basically that we're going to enter them into the ordinance as a class 2 resource. We are unable to do class 1 at this time. So the process is that we vote. We hear if there's opposition, we listen to that. And then we vote to pass it on to the supervisors that we either feel no, it doesn't qualify, or yes, it does. So we've started with the properties that have already been designated by the Delaware County Planning Commission in 1984 with the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission. So that was given by a grant, and the inventory was done for the whole county. So Newtown Township had probably approximately 90 properties listed. And it's in a booklet and I had the PDF, which I sent to the supervisors of all those properties. So that when they do come before you, there's an access way to even see them with photos, because we're starting with all of those that have already been designated. So these two, we've probably put 10 and they will all come before you.
Let's just focus on these two.
Right, but I'm saying, so these two, the information that we give you is the application that went in, and then usually a narrative, which I don't know if you have the narrative, but that did get passed on. There's a narrative on Paper Mill, and then there's a narrative on Friends Meeting, giving you background and history.
Are you authorized to speak on behalf of Newtown Friends Meeting House?
I am, but I asked Doug Humes to come to speak to that so that he could speak, I can speak to the Paper Mill property.
Okay, so are you in favor of having this designation?
Yes.
For this particular
Yes.
property at 120 North Newtown Street Road?
Meeting house.
That's the
The meeting
meeting
house.
house, yes.
That's what's on the that's on the
Yes,
application.
no, I understand, I know it's on there, my assumption is you maybe don't understand the process, so maybe you would want to
Well, I
ask.
understand the
questions.
process
yeah.
very well.
Okay,
And I just want to make certain that the property owner, and in this case, it's a nonprofit organization, want
yes,
to make certain that they're also in support of the designation.
they are,
And then you had indicated that you're here to speak on behalf of the McIsaacs who are in Europe.
yes,
And we
she
have,
wrote a letter of support,
Yeah,
and we saw that.
Yeah.
We saw that, yes.
We're out in Europe and did the back in Mexico.
but I want to just give you one correction on that, they can come before you without the support, it's not necessary to have the support of the homeowner or the property owner when we pass them on, it just.
Right.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Let me just.
Okay.
We would look positively on it. think
I know
is what
you
he's
would.
conveying.
That's why these two are here.
Right. So I would add.
And I think if I could, just to help the process a little bit. So Kathy, if you could explain for just a moment, you have 10 criteria
Yes.
that you look at.
Did they get a copy of that?
I don't know.
That was the second
specific-
page of the
I thought-
application?
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Okay, I would take just a moment and explain how this house, number
Yeah,
20. I
28.
would start with 28 because that's what's the first one on their agenda. How 28 meets why it meets, and you have 5 checked, I believe. Why it meets those 5.
Yes.
And so if you would just take, I think that's what they need to hear because that's
That's
what they're
fine.
making the decision on.
Okay, great. Well, that makes it
So that's
easier.
this is your 10, the one that Ms. McIsaac signed.
Yes, the check marks, she doesn't qualify for all 10.
I understand. That's the list though.
Yes, 1, 2, 7, 8, and 10. It's the mill workers' house, and I can give you the background. But number one, I don't want to read each one of these, if you could just look through them. And if you had a question on number one,
So I would take,
I don't want to read each one.
I
can-
understand you don't want to read each one, but what I would say is to you is what's the significant character, interest, or value that this particular property has
Sure.
that should make it
This
a
is
class
considered
two?
called the Mill Workers House. It's on Paper Mill Road, down the street from the Paper Mill House. That's significant for the mills. It would house the mill workers in the 1800s. It was built in 1820. It was part of the Moore woolen factory workers, or woolen mill. The paper mill was further down, and that housed the paper mill workers. It went through private ownership through the late 1800s, 1900s, was renovated, changed, but not the exterior, and then bought by the McIsaacs in 2000, who actually took it back to its more original 1800 features, so inside and outside. And it's maintained in very, very good shape. It's part of what we designate now as like the Paper Mill Historic District. I call it that, we call it that, because the whole street is, and now we have a trail that also runs through there. So, and it's a focal point of the street. So, do you have questions on that, or do you have any other?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
The Friends
Um,
meeting's been there forever.
Well, yeah, no, that actually could be a national register. It qualifies for that. So
Yeah,
if, do you have questions? We support it wholeheartedly. Obviously, that's why I put the application in.
Do you have any more specific questions?
No.
Yeah.
You know, one of you-
About that property.
So I think I would recommend.
vote on each individually.
Vote on each
Yeah.
individually so that you, if you're going to support them, so that the board can act accordingly.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of 28 Paper Mill Road to be listed as a class 2 resource for Newtown Township. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved.
Mr. Chairman, I then will make a motion that we recommend the approval of the Newtown Friends Meeting House be listed as a class 2 resource on the appropriate class 2 historical resource on the appropriate map.
It'll be a zoning map change.
Right, very well.
Second?
Just a point of, the application for the meeting house indicates a class 1 historical resource.
Yeah, the form.
Is that just at the title of it?
So 28 says class 2, but the meeting house says class 1.
Mine says class two.
The gray one?
On the agenda, it's class 2.
Well, this is the Xerox of something handwritten, so
Well, the criteria for class 1 is that you're on the National Register.
I'd be surprised if we're looking at
That appears to be
something
the
different.
case. This is the National Register.
Class 1. This one's class 2.
So let's give them class 2, and if they want to come back for class 1, we'll give them that too, if they have it.
I think that's what you need to do because you're
Notice for the class 2 does say that.
Probably a typo.
No, here's the one we have.
I've had to read them, so that is a bit of the narrative, but it tells you the numbers that we used.
Okay,
Okay, so use that with that.
so
We're doing class 2.
class 2, can you hand this to Steve? Make sure this just gets attached to the minutes.
Yep.
Just because there's two different sets floating around now.
Yeah.
We want to make sure the minutes reflect the right ones we approved.
Okay, we'll make sure this one's the one that's on record.
Okay, so you want to do the motion again because we didn't vote.
For the next.
Oh, we didn't vote?
No, so
Wanna make the motion again?
I will move that we approve the that we recommend the approval to the Board of Supervisors of the Newtown Friends Meeting House being listed on the as a Class 2 resource on an amended or modified zoning map.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. All opposed? Okay. Okay, next up,
Home base.
the home business, no impact, home-based business zoning.
So what this is a new ordinance to make some modifications and it more to clarify and separate no impact home-based businesses versus a home-based business. Currently, our ordinance kind of combines both of those terms, and it requires special exception approval for either one of those. The MPC recognizes them individually and sets criteria, sets no criteria for a no impact home-based business. So this draft ordinance simply mirrors the MPC and more or less corrects our code in that same vein to reduce the cost on a resident who simply wants to operate a business office from their home without pedestrian traffic or any outward signs of things. We would still consider and still require a home-based business to achieve special exception approval. So this ordinance simply eliminates the need for a no impact home-based business to go through that zoning process.
So this is a little confusing. If you can clarify what a regular home business is required to do versus what the no impact home business.
Well, no impact home-based business is basically, just as it says, there's absolutely no impact. There's no customer client traffic, there's no processing, there's no outward sign. It's typically someone operating, it wouldn't be like you could operate an office of any sort and have customers or clients come to your home as an office. It requires no additional parking, that type of thing. If it meets the definition of a no impact home-based business, our ordinance currently requires them to still obtain special exception approval. The MPC does not. So what we,
If I could give you an example, imagine if you are a traveling doctor. But you use your home to be as your base and you do office work from your home, but everything you do, you go out of the house and you go away. You would be a no impact business from your home. That would be an example.
But a regular home business is allowed to have extra parking or signs?
well,
or
we have criteria for that. And that criteria requires special exception. And when the applicant comes before the zoning hearing board, they have to establish that they are meeting that criteria. So that does not change with this draft.
So if I may, all we have to really focus here is a no impact, right?
Right.
That is correct.
So because home, you have to get a special exception, there's always consideration there. But for a no impact, you're saying that the use can be as of right, so don't even need any permission.
Right.
But in the definition, you identify that there should be no display of, no stockpiling or inventory of a substantial nature. Well, what is a substantial nature? If I run
No, that's for a home-based business.
no, sir. If we look at a no impact business, 172-0101. Shall be permitted as of right, a no impact home-based business shall be permitted as of right. And number 3 is there shall be no display of retail goods and no stockpiling or inventory of a substantial nature. So
We
it
could
then
strike that.
becomes discretionary. What is substantial? And it also suggests that there could be stockpiling of some inventory. So if I were to run a car detailing business out of my driveway. And I store some of the cleaning equipment outside, some, not substantial. That would be a permitted as of right.
Well, by that example, that would be a home-based business.
No,
not-
sir. It is
A
it
car
is
detailing business?
certainly, why would
That
it be a
would-
home-based business? I'm not having parking. I'm not having, the customer drops off their car and then leaves, or maybe stays.
But that would entail customer-client traffic, which would then require special exception.
I'm not certain that the definition of home base really excludes that. I think it could be a hairdresser. I think it doesn't say you can't have people
No,
coming.
no impact says, where is it? No employees, no customer, client, or patient traffic. In the no impact definition.
No storage, no noise, no vibration of any kind, no
So you're-
modifications to the interior dwelling, no delivery
Your
or
detail
normal
doesn't-
functions
can't
from the premise in
qualify.
excess of those normally associated with residential use. The home-based business does allow some of that, but still requires that type of home-based business would still have to come in for special exception and meet the criteria and go through that hearing.
Yeah, I feel a little shaky on this one.
Well, I have a question also. So, we are looking at, this ordinance. And, it says, no storage, no noise or vibration of any kind. So what does it mean, no storage? So for instance, if I
Well,
may,
nothing that's associated with storage any differently than would be normally associated with a residential home.
fine.
Right.
So here, my own example. I have a home business. I'm an engineer. I'm the only one who works there, right?
That would be considered a no home, but no impact home-based business.
But when I buy paper, I buy several boxes, right?
Right?
It's in my basement. Is this considered storage?
I mean.
I mean, there's no
I'd
impact
say
on anything.
There's, I guess we can get down into the weeds of this, but I mean, at some point in time, if you're simply getting a delivery, I don't think the township is, it even could come close to enforcing and observing whether or not you're getting an additional box of paper versus it would really be driven by.
This isn't a work from home ordinance. This is an ordinance that's saying, I don't understand why if we have an ordinance right now that says you want to run a home-based business, you need it by special exception.
Right.
Why we need to have a caveat to
Because
allow
the
it.
MPC recognizes two separate conditions, two separate definitions. It references, the MPC recognizes a no impact home-based business as a by right use in all areas. And it says in all types of dwelling situations. So it could be conducted in an apartment, single family, twin, townhouse, that you can have that a no impact home-based business in any type of residential dwelling situation. A home-based business is looked at differently and has a higher threshold that they must meet in the township.
So is it appears that the zoning districts for both non-impact home base and home base are the same.
Yep, that's correct.
So is there any areas that you're not allowed to have a home-based business? Like i.e. an apartment complex?
Well, yes, a home-based business
Right.
has to be done in a single family home.
Right, and so the zoning districts that are identified in the or in the draft ordinance are solely single family.
They allow for single family.
With special exception.
But so if they're the
Yeah,
same though, there's,
that doesn't change.
yeah, I don't understand why this ordinance is necessary just because it's in the MPC.
Well, we have applications that have come before the zoning hearing board. And there's a lot of cost associated with that application to do so. And I think that the zoning hearing board felt it was redundant to have people come in, spend $800 to testify to the fact that they're going to not really have an impact and truly meet the definition that's provided in the NPC. And our code currently kind of combines both of those
I
definitions
get it.
and requires special exception for all those, for each of those categories. Doesn't differentiate between the two. So it was really a way to make it more user-friendly to the residents. That was what drove this.
And then
But we need to be cognizant of everybody else that's not the applicant. We need to be cognizant of the other residents to make certain that they have the opportunity to know that what their next door neighbor is doing. If they come into a residential neighborhood, they should have the ability to have notice before the person starts operating a business. The
But it's no
example that you
impact.
used of the doctor, I don't see how, I don't see how the traveling doctor would be anything other than, are you suggesting, is there a business privilege tax here?
There's a business license
Right.
that they have to complete. When they fill out the business, this is typically how it comes in
Go ahead.
and how we figure out what's going on.
Right.
So the doctor being looking and trying to be an upright citizen says, I have to have a business license because I'm going to run the business and I'm using my home address as my location because that's what I'm doing. And so we don't happen to tax differently because we only have property taxes. We're not an earned income tax. We're not, there might be LST, you could argue, local service tax. But so they're as a business, they fill out and they get a business license. When they do that, currently, we require them to go before zoning, even though there's no impact on the neighbors around them. They do their work. My guess is it's very similar to Shimon. My guess is that you're not bringing clients into your house. You do your work in your house and he goes and does that. For him to have to go through a zoning process and meet conditions that are not related to what they're doing. We're just saying for those people, they shouldn't have to do that. Now, the other side of it, I can't hang up a sign that says I'm Dr. Neese outside my house in that process. I can't because now it's no longer a no impact. I'm actually making an impact.
So what is, there is another paragraph here of professional business office. What does this mean?
Which has no characteristics in the back. There's the,
Help me, where are you
The
exactly?
same page, the front page where you have,
Yeah, the definition, professional.
Oh, I'm
business
sorry, I see.
I want to say we did that, I believe, in some of my prior conversations with Mr. Score, we wanted to make sure that we limited what was a permitted home-based use by special exception. And that would be limited to a professional office. So it was important to define that.
but what
Because
happens?
we didn't want to allow, the county's letter was in general support of the draft ordinance. However, they even suggested to go a bit further and to add in different criteria for baking, a bakery, if you were running a small bakery out of there. Because there's requirements that a bakery would have to file with the Department of Agriculture. I didn't feel that it was necessary to go that deep into the weeds because we'll figure that out when they come to special exception. That's where that work will be done. So the more we define it, the more deeply we get in the weeds, the more disjointed I think it becomes. So we simply classified it as you're allowed to have a home-based business for a professional business office.
And so
And
it's
still
not a
meet that criteria.
subset, it's not a subset of no impact. It's just similar.
Yeah. The primary goal was to separate the code requirements and make it more fluid and less of a burden on those who are running what is a true no impact home-based business. Now, I would agree with you that enforcement is always an issue. I mean, obviously, we deal with things that come up each and every day that we have to look at and we're notified of, and we have to go out and we have to address. The ordinance gives us some basis and some teeth to enforce. Because if you're classified, if you achieve a no, or if you submit a business registration is the requirement, and you fill that out as a no impact home-based business, and then we get a report that says that, well, there's stockpiling outside and there's people coming and going. Well, we have teeth in the ordinance to go back and say, well, no, you're now operating something different than no impact home-based business, and you have to follow the special exception requirement.
I'm not seeing where we define professional business office. How is that used in this?
It's not shown, there's not like a list after it.
When you look down under 172-101, it specifically says that
Oh,
districts allow professional business office use.
Oh, I see.
okay.
And do you think this is necessary?
We do.
Well, you're the guy that has
I would
to
agree.
enforce it. I mean, I know that Steve.
Well, I'll be honest with you, in ordinances that I've been privy to prior to Newtown, they've always had it separated. It's always been in line with the NPC.
Okay.
So this ordinance has been in the MPC for ages. you
I
said.
I can't speak to
It's there
when
now.
the NPC recognized these two different categories. I can speak to the fact that it does recognize them differently.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make a recommendation. Yeah,
What are we doing here?
recommendation to the supervisors for approval of the amendment to the zoning ordinance.
No impact.
Look for the number, I guess it doesn't have a number yet.
I don't think there's a number assigned to it yet, but it would be,
So
Allowing for the creation of a no impact business.
home-based business and further defining permitted and not permitted uses within the home-based business, no impact business, and professional business uses.
I'll second that motion.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Probably wouldn't make any difference, right?
Then the next one seems more complicated. Steve, you were gonna touch
Yeah,
base
so
on this
if
one?
I can kind of key this up. So we've had several conversations with folks who have requested types of logistics centers from time to time. And so this ordinance would allow for a logistics center to be located in the Lifestyle Village. We have one area in town where the Lifestyle Village is. It does require that there is, it also falls under the C2. So the C2 is broader, and then Lifestyle Village is a more narrow piece to that. And then the other piece of this is, I just make note, is that it requires that I think it requires there be at least 55 acres as part of that development in order for this logistics center to come into play. So this change, right now, we don't have any place where we say a logistics center could go in town. Therefore, somebody actually probably could come in and say, we want to put it here, and we would have a hard time saying absolutely not, because we don't have another place for it. So we are coming up with a place for it, and we are controlling the size, and we are controlling where it is within the township. And that's what the purpose of this is.
And what it looks like. Doesn't it has to look like an office building, doesn't it?
We've recommended that it look like an office. building,
recommended.
yes.
And the use here is what people used to call a warehouse?
That is correct. Logistics center just sounds better.
And before that, just industrial.
And it has to have a minimum setback of 150 feet solely from Westchester Pike.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we only have an area that is zoned lifestyle village, which is off of Westchester Pike.
And then,
And
and then we're
the
dictating that
maximum-
it goes in a particular
Maximum
spot.
building size of 80,000 square feet.
65,000.
Well, I think 65 is another piece that's not related to, that's a retail store is limited to 65,000 within the lifestyle village, which was an addition to what was there before. The logistics center, I do believe, is 80,000, if I recall.
So in practice, it's a particular location within a particular parcel.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have it permitted anywhere, it's the billboard question again, isn't it?
It is.
Anybody,
I'll move to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that they approve the proposed zoning modifications in a C2 district that will provide for the proposed additions and modifications to the lifestyle village. I guess area zone qualification district,
zoning district,
zoning district.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Did you have a comment? Did you have a comment? Or just saying aye?
Aye.
Oh, yeah, I want to make sure we're cutting you off.
I was seconding, but I was late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. We don't have any additional business. Do we have a motion to close?
Motion to
Move
close.
we adjourn.
Second,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for coming.
See you.